You do my hair?
Hey everyone, this is Jody Thomas and welcome to the Dance of Surrender, where we are going to be talking about how to turn off your monkey mind, get more done, and flow effortlessly into your zone. I'm so excited to have today's guest here with me, C. Wilson Meloncelli. And I found out about him by doing research about flow on the internet, and he was one of the first websites that came up that had videos and a lot of really interesting information. So I'm really excited to have him here. So just to give you a little bit of a background story about Wilson, he is an elite flow trainer, an international trainer of professional athletes, an ex-British champion in MMA, and an instructor in 5 martial arts. He is also a trained stunt performer and master practitioner in neuro-linguistic programming. Wilson has been in the health and fitness industry for almost 20 years. His significant experience includes martial art instructor in Jeet Kune Do, Filipino martial arts, Silat, and Muay Thai. Trained as a stunt performer with skills in gymnastics, trampolining, rock climbing, horse riding, among others. He's also a master practitioner in neuro-linguistic programming, hypnotherapy, and Eureka energy practitioner. And he has worked in the industry for 20 years with skills in Pilates, strength and conditioning, mobility, clinical posture, and others. And just to share a little known tidbit so you feel like you know him a little bit more intimately, he likes to watch new movie trailers on his IMDb app, which, as I'm not a huge technological person, he might have to tell me even what that is. And also, he is dyslexic, so he likes to read and listen to books on audio every day. So welcome, Wilson. I'm so happy to have you here.
Well, thanks very much for having me, and thanks for that very cool introduction. Thanks for that. I like the bit about the IMB app. That is definitely something that I love to do, and I haven't done it today, but I generally do it pretty much every day, and especially because the new Star Wars trailer has just come out. So that was one that I viewed yesterday.
You would have been very helpful for us last night. I went with my my husband and my sister and brother-in-law last night to a trivia at a bar, and they that one of the questions they asked was you had to look at 5 scenes from new videos that are out online right now in the theaters right now and tell what the names were. We got 4 out of 5.
That's pretty good. I would have think that would be my speciality. Definitely doing that.
All right, well, let's jump into this by you telling us what you think surrender it means to you.
Surrender. So, one of the things that interests me, and I wrote about it in the program that I have, is the sort of confusion with words anyway. Everybody has their own take on words, and I like the way you asked me that question, what does it mean to you? Because really every word has a different meaning to everybody, even if it is a very simple word that we believe to be understood the exact same way by everybody. It still has a different take on it. And I asked a few friends and clients what they thought about the word surrender, and yeah, everybody came up with a different understanding to it all. But for me, and the way that I understand and generally feel the word surrender is literally what it is, the feeling. I would connect the feeling of what surrender is to me. And for me, surrender is almost like relaxing into a situation, relaxing into something and allowing myself to tune in to the moment, tune into the flow, whatever you want to call it. So basically, the bottom line for me is as simple as it may sound, is the feeling of the word surrender. That way, it really can take on for everybody. What does the feeling of surrender feel like to you? And for me, the feeling is to be able to relax into a situation. Does that make sense? What I'm explaining to you?
Yeah, absolutely. And so when you were writing this book, so you sent me this book about flow stories. You just mentioned in the beginning that you are dyslexic, and so how did you kind of relax into this idea of writing a book, or where did the idea for these flow stories come from?
Well, you know what? To relax into something or to surrender into something, let's say the whole book took me a year, but the surrendering and relaxing was something that happened quite a lot throughout every day of that year. So there'd be times when an obstacle would appear to itself, and for me, I would have to sort of, if you like, relax, surrender into that, and allow myself to, get over my obstacle. Sometimes when I didn't relax or I didn't surrender in the moment, I would get myself cloudy in my mind. I like to call it the cloud of confusion. I would be cloudy and I wouldn't see clearly. And I hope I'm not going off on a tangent here, but the whole experience of being dyslexic helped me in other things, because I can't write a simple email to somebody without having to let myself relax. The second I get frustrated or I get rushed, the email will come out, strange. I mean, some people have replied back to the email basically saying, what do you mean? So, the whole process, and then I read back the email myself and I think, who the hell wrote that? Who's that? I have no idea what it was. But in my mind, it was okay. But that the whole consistency of relaxing as many moments throughout the day as you possibly can is something that I think needs to be taught and trained and practiced by everybody. And that's definitely something that I personally went through on that journey of writing the book. And it really was a journey. I mean, the whole book when you read it, you can it should reveal the process that I was going through in each of the individual stories, Like you said earlier, there's layers in the stories.
It's so fascinating to me listening to you. It sounds to me almost like having dyslexia has kind of augmented and put this idea of flow right into your face so that you can almost see it more clearly than others. Because when you say that when you write an email, if you're not relaxed, it doesn't come out right, or it comes out a little bit gobbled, and people sometimes think that sounds strange. But to me, as I was listening to that, I was thinking, well, yeah, probably, when other people who do not have dyslexia are writing emails, like if we're doing it in a hurried way, even though the words, are grammatically correct and they go together and everything, like they still might not have the energy behind them that we want them to actually be able to convince someone. For example, like when I sent you the email to ask if you wanted to participate in this telesummit, like maybe at that moment I was very relaxed as I was writing that email to you, and so the vibe that you got when you read it made you think, well, yeah, I think maybe I would like to participate, whereas if I had wrote it in a very rushed manner and sent it to you, perhaps you would have reacted differently.
Yeah, no, I agree completely with what you're saying, and I think you know what you're talking about when you're saying that, and a lot of people aren't really aware of how energy sort of transmits, especially even through an email. So yeah, you do need to be in that relaxed, comfortable state, no matter what you are. If you're dyslexic, or if you're not dyslexic, if you're performing a sport, if you're teaching other people, the key is to be relaxed. Having said that, sometimes you can be too relaxed, or you can surrender too much, and you fall into the opposite. There is that fine line, that knife's edge of surrendering just the right amount. And probably what you'll notice as well, because you coach people, you train people, sometimes people need the opposite. Sometimes people need a little bit of a shove. They need a little bit more of a push, a little bit more of a wake-up call.
Oh, this is great.
Yeah,
so tell us how... how can you actually find that balance? I mean, this is something that hasn't come up in my other interviews, and I love that you brought this up. The fact, because I mean, a lot of people think of surrender as just like completely like giving up or letting go, and people see that like as, well, I'm just going to stop doing things. But we're trying to talk to people in this telesummit, or my goal is to help people understand that surrender is not stopping to take action. It's actually potentially could be doing more action, but doing it in a way that we are aligned with our higher selves or the universe or however you want to call it. So can you explain a little bit more what this fine line is and how you've personally found the balance between those two?
Well, this is the thing, and this is a common thing for, I believe, for everybody, including myself. I still fall in the trap to using the language in this way. I use the word balance, but there isn't really a balance per se. It's a progressive balance. So you're kind of consistently moving forward. When you say the word, or I say the word to myself, balance, it almost represents in my mind and my feeling as a sort of staticness. I'm static. Whereas what I think a lot of people are missing is that progressiveness, that progressive balance. And when you progress forwards, you're constantly going to be tiptoeing between relaxation and tension. You're constantly going to be between those two as you progress forwards. The problem is where you fall into what I call the cloud of confusion or whatever it may be. You either fall in and put too much emphasis on the relaxation, or you put too much emphasis on the tension. It's that progressive balance between those two that we need. For instance, to me, in general, how I observe it, society produces this sort of tension, fight through the pain, keep going, fight sort of attitude. But on the flip side, we need to make sure that we don't do the opposite too much, where we're too relaxed. Because sometimes when we're too relaxed, and this is a trap I fell in for myself, it says that you don't actually go anywhere, you don't actually progress forwards. So it's finding the balance, the progressive balance between those two is the key for me. And I always describe it as tension and relaxation, because when I say the word tension and when I say the word relaxation, for me, because I'm very kinesthetic, there's a feeling to it. I can connect to the energy better, and I tune into the energy. I would think of the energy as being like I don't know if you have it here, but in the UK we've got like a hot and cold tap that's separate. So you need to turn the hot tap of the bath and the cold tap of the bath, and you've got to sort of both get them exactly right so that the water is at a good temperature. There's that wee mix of the two. A progressive balance is exactly the same way. It's making sure you've got the correct amount of cold water and the correct amount of hot water to make a nice balance, a nice bath.
I love that analogy because, when I take a shower, I like to take a quite hot shower, but then at the end I always turn on like as cold a water as I can to like rinse off before I get out. And when you just said that, I was like, yeah, that's perfect, because the warm water is extremely relaxing to the body. It's opening, but then the cold water is like really invigorating and like it energizes me. And so finding the balance between the hot water and the cold water, I love that.
Cool.
So where do you think that surrender and flow converge? So you've been working with this idea or this concept of flow for quite a long time. Maybe you can kind of tie your experience with flow and working with other people in flow with this idea of surrender that you just talked about.
Well, I think when you look at like the top athletes, no matter what they do in their sport, in their field, the ones at the top of the game have this sort of look and this sort of energy about them, which is relaxed but yet focused, attentive to what they're doing. And then you have the other types of, the wannabe top 10, or the ones that go out there and really fight to be up at the top ranking. They have this different type of energy, this sort of hungry desperation going about them all, this sort of clinging to get to the top. And there's so many, that whole explanation there that I just said, there's so many layers in that as well that we could go into different tangents, but to keep what you're discussing is that the way that I observe people and the way that I am personally as well, have observed people, is I don't go in and observe everybody the exact same way, it's just how I see them, is that most of the time they are too tense. You know, there's too much tension in their body. They need to perhaps surrender to their natural progression in something, you know. And even if you think about it as well, when you think of surrendering or relaxing into something, especially if you're an athlete, something else comes to the surface with that. Is, do they have the patience to be able to go through that process to be relaxed? So going on the journey of understanding flow and understanding how to surrender to get yourself tuned into flow has lots of layers of lessons in there, have lots of things that will come up which will stop you wanting to go down that path, even though when you describe what it's like to be in the flow state, you feel yourself relaxed and focused. There's this certain type of energy you are. So, have I gone off on a tangent here? Are you understanding what I'm trying to say?
No. Absolutely perfect. I just, a question came up for me while you were talking about that. You were mentioning how a lot of the people who are like really kind of like clawing, the like desperate to get to the top. I mean, you work with top athletes, but I imagine that happens in business and in many different fields. My question is, do you find that these people who are climbing to the top, that they have tension on all levels of their being, that their balance between this tension and relaxation you were talking about is on all levels? So I mean, like on the physical level, on the mental level, on the spiritual level, and how would you start going about to adapt that a little bit?
Well, you know, it depends on how you look at it. On one level, if I look at something specific, I may say, no, there has no tension. But to me, everything is one, everything is united. I can't talk about anything physical without there being a connection with the mental and emotional and so on. So it is all interlinked, it is all connected. So tension somewhere is tension everywhere, you know. There is no difference there. It might appear like that, there might appear to be relaxed, but sooner or later, you know, the tension will reveal itself in all angles. It just depends if you have to observe it in others. But when I say others, you know, the real secret is to observe it in yourself. When you start using yourself as, you know, practice on yourself and practice living like that yourself, you begin to observe it in others better, you know.
Absolutely. And do you think that this widespread overwhelm that many people are really struggling against, where they kind of have their balance is way tipped over towards the side of tension, and they have a lot of trouble with relaxation because they just feel like their to-do list never ends? Do you think that overwhelm could actually be counteracted by surrendering and learning to enter into the state of flow on demand?
Well, to me, flow is the optimal state to be in. I speak from an athlete's point of view, but for me generally, and anybody now, you can just call the flow state anything you want. Anybody can call it what they want, but generally, to me, the flow state is the optimal state to be in. Now, how do you maintain the flow state throughout the day so that your to-do list doesn't feel like a to-do list? You know, it's to me, when you practice maintaining flow and doing your task, everything sort of blends in, everything dissolves in, becomes fun because your attention switched to not necessarily doing your to-do list per se, but really maintaining your attention on maintaining the flow. How do you maintain the flow? And you notice that when you maintain that everything just flows. Your to-do list is your flow list. You know, you go through it quite quickly. No, but even stepping on the journey to maintain flow, has lots of things that come up. Can you maintain flow in lots of situations in life? Can you maintain flow under physical, emotional pressure? Can you maintain flow while you're walking down the street and an attacker comes towards you? Can you maintain flow when you're in the traffic lights and you're sitting in these traffic lights or a traffic jam and you've been there for 5-10 minutes and you're going to be late for work? Can you maintain flow then? And what obstacles pop out to you? What emotions and feelings pop out to you during those times? Is it fear? Is it the lack of courage? Is it not having enough intention or whatever it may be? So, for me, the answer is flow, and the journey to maintain flow is an answer in itself. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. So then for me, the next logical question is, do you believe that one could actually stay in the flow state all the time?
I don't see why not. I don't see why people can't. I generally think there is probably times and days that a lot of people have been. I can definitely see in the competitive field where athletes are in the flow. You could say like for a season, an athlete or a team is in the flow. Now, if they can do that in a season, then I think everybody generally has the potential eventually to have that in life and in work. But it all comes down to the individual. Do you want to be able to work to get in that? Because it's not like we've got this thing drummed in society where we want that quick fix, we want that thing to happen now. I want to take a tablet and be in a flow state and be in there forever. Whereas unfortunately that doesn't normally happen. Like everything in nature, there's this natural Fibonacci sequence to, and you need to just allow yourself to relax into that, to be patient and allow that natural cycle to happen. Now, if your objective is to live in the flow and you have those attributes to be able to let that natural sequence occur, then yeah, why not?
So you said that when one gets pulled out of the flow state, like if you're in the flow state and driving to work or whatever, and you get into a traffic jam, and the light is just red and you can't go anywhere and you're going to be late, what should you do with that? Once you notice what obstacles pop out at you that bring you out of the flow state, like for example fear or overwhelm or any of those kinds of things, what should one do with that once they recognize it?
Well, first thing is that sometimes what normally happens is it's gone too far. You need to pick up the subtle signals that happen before you get to that point. So that's the real secret, is to try and catch yourself before you get into those deeper emotions or those deeper fears. So, I remember a martial art instructor told me once, I said to him, so how did you get out of this move? And he said to me, Craig, the best way for you to get out of this move is not to get in it in the first place. So from that lesson there, I then spent time observing what happened before I got to that point. What are all of these subtleties that happened? And as I progressed in the martial arts, I began to see those subtleties, clearer and clearer and clearer, that they didn't become subtle anymore, Do you know what I mean? So like before, when I was actually in the finishing hold or the move and I had to submit, that's what you call it in martial arts, they would tap. Now I would see lots of things happening before I got to that point. So in the traffic jams, before you even get to that point, something would have occurred. Because I'm pretty sure you've been through experiences in your life where you've been in the traffic jam, you didn't even know you were in a traffic jam, you were laughing and joking with yourself, family members, you're maybe singing, or, maybe you were flicking through movie trailers on your app. I don't know. Maybe you did lots of things like that.
Yeah. So, do you think that it is possible to control how often you enter? So we've talked about what takes you out of it, and that one should begin to recognize what takes you out of it and try to veer away. Maybe you can just speak one moment on that. I mean, once one does recognize what takes you out of it and you can start to see it coming on, do you kind of change directions when you see that starting to come on, or what do you do when you feel that?
It all really depends on the individual, doesn't it? It all really depends. When you know what your destination is and how you want to get to that point, you know what's correct. So the whole idea is not to necessarily listen to somebody external. The whole idea for you is to stop, to do what should I do, what should I not do in the head, relax, and you'll begin to tune into what you need to do to maintain it. I could sit here and say a list of things to you how to maintain the flow, but really when it comes down to it, the most powerful thing you can get is the ability to shut your head up and listen to yourself. Listen to the sense, listen to the feeling, listen to what you sense to be the correct. And if it's not correct, then you'll learn for next time. Tune into it, I'm reluctant. One of the things with me is that I'm reluctant to put people back into their heads. I want to try and take them out of their head, which is kind of tricky to do when you're having a conversation. But I try and get them out of their head. So when I'm training with people one-to-one, it's a lot easier because I'm there and I can see what I need to do to shift their attention. But the bottom line is for everybody is to find a way for you to sort of relax yourself, to tune into your senses. If you manage to maintain that, if you can relax yourself to tune into your senses, and the moment you're maybe walking down the street and you trip up, for instance, and you trip up and you fall out of the flow state, you begin to sort of learn step by step as you go what caused you to trip up. What are the signs that you could have observed personally before that happened? Do you know what I'm trying to say to you?
Yeah, absolutely. And so you were just mentioning that you try to help people get out of their minds, which you can't necessarily do through words. And this has been one of my big questions along this whole ride of me learning about flow as well, is where is this balance between gathering information, or maybe in the case of sports, like practicing, like this practice, or for people who do meditation or yoga, practicing that, or reading books about yoga or reading books about meditation or going to a meditation class. So that would be on one side where you're actually kind of gathering worldly information, versus receiving universal wisdom or inspiration, where you just kind of like plug in directly to this infinite knowledge that we all have access to, but it's a matter of actually getting there. So what do you think about the balance between those two?
I think it comes down to the bath again, doesn't it? It comes down to making sure you've got enough of the cold water and enough of the hot water for it to be a progressive balance between the two. A lot of us fall into traps of maybe picking up too many books and not doing any exercises, and then we still have the other people out there who do too much exercise and not enough reading. So the fine balance becomes, it really is, that progressive balance is found in between what you just asked there. And again, I can't generalize it because it all comes down to the individual. And it all comes down to the individual according to what time of the year it is, or what day of the week it is, or where are they in their personal development. It all comes down to that. The bottom line is for me, the key is to tune in, tune into the sense, tune into the feeling, and is it a progressive feeling or is it a stagnant, stale feeling? That to me is the only way that you can really progress yourself, you know?
Absolutely. So maybe you can now give us a couple of tips or techniques of how to get into the flow.
Well, for me, I mean, I hope that everything that I've been saying and talking, there should be a structure in there that people can sort of tune into. And it is, to me, how to get into the flow is that, you know, everybody's experienced flow at some point in their life, whether it's through a sport, whether it's writing a book or doing anything with their work, their business, whatever it is, you've experienced the state of flow before. So the key for me then is that then all you need to do is recall that, is remember that state and tune into the state of flow. When I say tune into the state, it's back to the feeling, it's tuning into the feeling of it. And the second you do that, you're in it. You know, your brain's releasing the same hormones and chemicals into your system as if you're actually experiencing it there and then. Therefore, you are experiencing it. It just depends on how clear you're recalling that situation. And that's you in it. You know, don't overcomplicate it. Is that me in it? Yeah. Relax. That's you in it. Now you can refine that skill. You can make that skill stronger and more, your sensitivity towards it greater by practicing it more. You know, and as you do that and refine it, you begin to observe that you get new experiences of the flow state in different aspects of your life as you progress on, as you evolve. So you can recall and grow and step from state to state or from experience to experience and develop and grow in the flow with that. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so it's really straightforward for me, is if you want to access the flow state, then tune into the feeling of the flow state that you've had before. That's it. Now, the course that I have, it's the free course that we spoke about before we started this. This is exactly what it is. As I've got this free course for you to, step by step, teach you to hack into the flow state or to get into the flow state. So you can get the course there, do it step by step. I'm not going to tell you anything that I've not told you here already. You can do it now. You can empower yourself right now by just remembering the experience and connecting to it.
Great. You know? Yeah. So that the link for that that meditation that Wilson mentioned is going to be in the email where you clicked on the link to hear this interview. So if anyone wants to go and listen to that right now, please do so. I have already done it, and it is wonderful, and I really enjoyed how he leads you through actually getting into this flow state. Maybe you can tell us a story or two real quick, Wilson, about how others have broken through their walls by using this flow. So I know you've worked with quite a few people and have helped them hack into this flow. Have you seen any really amazing changes that you would like to share?
Yeah, I have done. I mean, I've gone from one extreme to the other. So, you know, I've trained with a pro skier. Within 3 months, he managed to take a second and a half of his best time that he's ever done. But then I've also trained with, you know, people that are not athletes. They're just there for general health and well-being who have massively shifted as well. But you know what I'm talking about here, Jodie, like the deep changes are subtle and they don't manifest, they're not really shown to everybody until time. So it takes it takes time for you to really acknowledge the difference. Now you can be in the flow state instantly, without a doubt. But the changes of consistently practicing being in the flow state really will come out in time. You know, for me, you just want to get yourself absorbed in it, absorbed in the hunger to search for the flow state, to be in the flow state. You know, like when you were a kid and you sort of put like the posters on the wall of maybe stars or whatever you wanted to be, to aspire to. You put those pictures on the wall and you sort of obsess about it. I mean, for me, it was like Bruce Lee and Jean-Claude Van Damme. That was the ones that I sort of obsessed over. So as a kid, I would have these pictures up my wall, and I basically surrounded myself with that. And it's the same idea with wanting to be in the flow state. Get hungry with it, surround yourself with it, read the books, practice the exercises, immerse yourself in it, and just keep that consistently going. In fact, the biggest obstacle that everybody's going to face and still faces every day is consistency. It's consistency that makes the change. It's consistency that forms the habit, and it's consistency that breaks the habit. And not many people have consistency. And the flow is found in consistency, and the flow is what's needed to be truly consistent. So I hope that's too much of a head turner there. Sorry, everybody, if it is.
So you need consistency to be in flow, and you need flow to be consistent.
Well, no, I mean, to live in flow and to be in flow all the time, you need to be consistently hungry, consistently pushing forwards to be in flow. You can activate flow instantly, okay? You can do an exercise, you can do a sport, you can do something to get you into the flow state. But to be able to live in flow state and to be able to reap the benefits of the flow state, it has to have consistency. But what I was trying to explain is that in the progression of consistency, the best tool for consistency to grow and flourish is being consistent in the flow. You understand what I mean?
So, thank you so much. This has been amazing. Maybe just real quick, you could, for anyone out there who's listening that's saying, oh my gosh, I don't even have time to get into the flow state once, like I'm so busy, my to-do list is growing, and the word consistency just doesn't fit into my lifestyle. Can you just maybe mention, one thing that those people could do, take 1 minute or 2 minutes in their day to kind of start getting the feel for flow?
Yeah, take 1 or 2 minutes a day and do the exercise that I'll give away. I'm giving the exercise, it takes 3 minutes, 5 minutes, no matter where you are, obviously when you're not driving, and you say just take 2 or 3 minutes. First of all, you're taking 2 or 3 minutes for yourself for the object, which is to live in flow. Sit down, put the headphones on, and do the meditation, do the exercise. Just sit. That's all you need to do. It's just those wee steps every day, and that alone is creating consistency. That by doing an exercise for 2 minutes, 3 minutes every day, that's it. To be in flow and the exercises that I give in the program, I'm not looking for you to overwhelm your life, not at all. You don't need to. It's just tiny wee shifts and changes that grow and flourish and blossom into bigger changes. But it's not like, okay, I've finished an 8-hour shift in work. Now I need to go and do 3 hours of flow training. No, 3 minutes. For me, what I do and what I recommend everybody to do is do 3 minutes in the morning and 3 minutes before you go to bed. Done. That's all you need to do.
Well, I think that people are going to love to hear that, because I know that a lot of people who are on this call are definitely very busy in their lives, and they're looking to kind of take away that busyness. So 3 minutes in the morning and 3 minutes at night, I think is doable for pretty much anyone if they choose to commit to that.
If they do that and they commit to it, I'd love people to give me an email and let me know how you got on with it. But really, doing it the last thing before you go to bed, You know, there's a lot of teachings in that as well. It's the first thing, it's the last thing you think about before you go to sleep, and it's the first thing you think about when you wake up. Think of that as a powerful tool for you to sort of take your day into flow and sleep in flow, if you like. So 3 minutes either end is more powerful than you think it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I've heard that from a lot of different people, and that's what I often try to do if I don't have a lot of time to meditate or to reflect or anything throughout my day in general. I always try right before I go to bed at night and early in the morning, like as soon as I wake up, when I'm still kind of in that state in between sleep and wake, to focus on what it is that I want in my life, in my day, where I want my intentions to be, and I think it is very, very powerful. And so doing the exercise you mentioned of feeling into your flow and feeling what flow is like, I think that will absolutely help people to keep that present throughout their days.
Good. I hope it does, but I know it will. So I hope everybody enjoys the exercise, and I hope they've enjoyed listening to this Scottish accent. I don't know if we can put subtitles on this. I don't know if you need subtitles.
Well, I have to say I absolutely adore the accent. I could talk to you for several hours just to listen to that.
That's good. Thanks for that. I'm probably better understood by reading my book. I think that's maybe a safer bet for people. And also just doing the exercise, it is a Scottish accent that's doing the voice, so again, it's maybe good or bad for people, so enjoy.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Wilson. And again, so the link for the free gifts that he gave us that he's been speaking about to help you hack into the flow is right in the email where you clicked on for this. And then, Wilson, maybe you can just tell us your website in case people want to find out more about what you're doing.
Yeah, it's cwilsonmelancholy.com. You better do the email as well because, you know, I'm dyslexic. If I try and spell that out right now, it'll be a bit of a disaster. So it's best it's for the email and you just click it. Once you're there, you should recognise the page because it's my face that's on it, not my voice. You'll be happy to hear it. My face.
Yes, and I will put the link for that in the email as well, so you don't have to worry about spelling it out. Even though I'm not dyslexic, I think it would be difficult for me. It's quite a long name as well.
Yeah, melancholy is always a hard one. Right, well, Jodie, look, I just want to say thanks very much for having me. I've really enjoyed the call. It's been great, and yeah, we should do it again.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, and thank you to all the listeners to sticking with us and listening to that adorable accent, and I will talk to you soon, Wilson.
Okay. Ciao.
Bye.